Welcome to Jesse's Book Corner. This is the revision of my last report. So today we're going to be discussing The Life of Pi by Yann Martel. And we are going to be discussing specifically, as you can see up there, the probability of pi. Probability specifically, how likely it is that Pi would be shipwrecked and have all the events that happened to him happen to him. The reason I thought of doing this was because of our last book, The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien. And throughout The Things They Carried, there's this theme of story truth versus reality truth. And those two things interact a lot, and it happens in this book too. Yann Martel consistently makes the reader question what's really happening. Now, before we get too much into this, on the book, on the back, it does say that it is so the probability of this actually existing, because the book is fiction, is 0. It does not exist. But when I started to read the book, I didn't know that this book was fiction, so I kind of thought that it might be non-fiction and the events might be true. Since I thought the events might be true, that's how I was thinking about the book as I read it. When I read the second to last chapter, pretty much actually all of part 3, there's these interviewers that come and they interview Pi to see what his story was. And I was thinking, what if I was one of those interviewers and I had to believe or disbelieve Pi's story? How would I do it? What would I think? And this is what I came up with. We're going to analyze different things of Pi's journey that I thought were not probable and could not happen. A little bit of pre-knowledge is this map thing right here. We want to know where Pi is so that we can see how probable all these things happen to him, because we need to know the location. Like, the probability of a tornado is higher in Denver than it is in the middle of the Atlantic. So where he is right now is the Pacific Equatorial Countercurrent. He started over here, and actually he started up in India, came over here, he was traveling like this, he probably got shipwrecked somewhere around there, came through here, and ended up in Mexico. Now, which brings me to my first point. Mexico. How did Pi get to Mexico? You can see by here that this equatorial current travels pretty much right there on the equator. Now, Mexico's warm, but it's not quite on the equator, my friend. So that Pi landed in Mexico, completely improbable. I don't think that could happen. I mean, he's traveling this current and he doesn't paddle at all, so he can't go anywhere. At the end, he just happens to land up in Mexico. No, that doesn't happen. Another thing that is improbable is the things that pass by Pi. First one being the boat. The oil tanker that comes, it passes by Pi's boat, and Pi shoots up a flare, and the flare doesn't work because it bounces off the hull of the boat and goes into the water. And Pi says, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, but the boat doesn't recognize him, doesn't see him, the oil tanker just passes by. That's what happens there. And the thing is, I don't really think that the oil tanker would have found Pi. And I don't know this for sure, I don't know how probable this is because I don't know the past of the boats. So, I don't know whether the boat meeting Pi on the equatorial countercurrent is likely or not, because I don't know where the boats were going at that point in history, unfortunately. So I would think that it's not very likely. I mean, it's a big ocean. The Pacific Ocean is a gigantically enormous thing. And just the strip of the equatorial countercurrent is big. So that the ships would go on that, maybe, maybe not, but I would not think so. The more unlikely thing that he meets, besides the giant boat, is the other person on the lifeboat. He meets him near the end of chapter 2. Now, I have to say that before he met him, he was in a state of delirium, and so now he's blind, and he's hallucinating, and he hears this guy, and he starts talking to the guy, and the guy has a boot, and he has a cigarette. If the oil tanker is completely improbable, then the guy meeting him is completely out of there, no question about it. It cannot happen. Maybe he hallucinated it, but if it was real, this completely puts his story out of there. Another thing that I thought of when I was reading it. Another thing I thought of when I was reading this is the frequent exposure to animals that Pi has. Not only the animals in the sea, but the zoo animals he takes along with him. And I was like, will that really happen? First, for the zoo animals, for normal shipwreck I say, like they happen all the time, zoo animals probably wouldn't be on a lifeboat. Because they're transporting the zoo animals, the probability of the zoo animals ending up in the lifeboat is higher than you might think it would be, because they're transporting them. I mean, they're there, so they can do it, and it's a whole thing. So that's good. The probability of them being on the boat, which I thought was like, no, that's not going to happen, is actually pretty good. A thing that I thought of with the orangutan, zebra, hyena, and tiger on it is that training the tiger, whose name is Richard Parker, if you haven't figured that out already or don't know, I haven't read the book. His name, Richard Parker, is trained, and I didn't really think that could happen. Like, when I first met Richard Parker, he's like, oh, Pi's gonna get eaten by this tiger. But, Martell goes into pretty deep depth about describing how Pi trained the tiger with his whistle and marking his territory with his urine and having the turtle shells to defend himself. So, after I read the book, pretty probable. Zoo animals being on there, not a problem. Training a tiger while on a lifeboat, oh, totally possible. But the one thing that is not possible is orange juice. Just like the oil tanker and the other man that Pi meets, Orange Juice is just floating on her little banana thing and just happens to meet up with Pi. I can't believe what happened, because there's just two little things and they go together in the giant counter-current Pacific Ocean place, and again they just happen to meet up, and it's like, gah. I mean, Orange Juice and Pi came from the same boat, and they're probably on the same current, but even still, I mean, Orange Juice is probably more likely than the oil tanker, and definitely more likely than the other guy on the boat, but her likeliness is no. And, just for an interesting fact, when the interviewers from Japanese thing, when the interviewers are interviewing Pi, they say bananas don't float. Tested it, bananas float. So now we know that all the zoo animals could have been on there, and they could have been trained, except for Orange Juice, who shouldn't have met Pi even. But another thing I thought of was the marine animals, and Pi meets a lot of marine animals, Dorados, sharks, other fish, turtles, and I didn't think that was very possible. I mean, Pi even says himself that he didn't think that he was going to meet a lot of stuff, and then it happened to be that he did, because the ocean is teeming with life. So I was like, I still don't believe you, Pi. I don't think all these animals could be there. So I googled stuff, and I looked through the book and found all the types of animals he meets. So the things he meets are the blue shark, the white tip, the tiger shark, the mako shark, the hawksbill turtle, and the green sea turtle, and Dorados, and a whale. So those are all the marine life he meets, at least the prominent ones. And the blue shark could live in the Pacific equatorial countercurrent, so that's good. And it goes the same with the white tip, and the tiger shark, and the mako shark. So all the sharks could be there. All the turtles, hawksbill shark, yes. Green sea turtle shark, yes. And the Dorados, yeah, sure. I actually learned more about Dorados, that they mate and reproduce and have eggs in currents, in warm currents, so that they would be there is completely reasonable. Unfortunately, the whale, we don't know what type of whale it is, and I would think that the current, because it is strong, is kind of pulling these things together. At least all the sea animals, I mean, they live in the sea, and there's many of them, unlike the oil tanker and Orange Juice and the guy on the boat. There's only one of each of those, but there's many animals, so that they could all see them is good. Even the whales. And because the whales are big, that he saw them. I mean, I've seen whales off a ship, and so I think that's probable. So all these things are fairly not probable, sometimes a probable thing, you know, the way you believe the book is still up in the air. at this point, but the things that put it over for me personally were the carnivorous algae. But I'm still going from the perspective of interviewing Pi and seeing if I think it was real. I pulled this too, I did some research, and I found that there is carnivorous algae. It feeds on other algae and fish, and sometimes even feeds on itself, and when its need is dire. And the algae actually, composes and breaks down and eats meat. But the thing is, it's so sparse that you can, like, barely even see it. I mean, the fish might die, but they have to be small fish. And the amount of carnivorous algae that Pi meets is just ludicrous. The algae that's carnivorous and acidic and eats salt, no, does not happen. And also, it eats other fish, and it's ginormous, and just totally bad, no. Improbable, it does not work. See my flailing arms as proof. On the carnivorous island, there are also meerkats. At the time when I saw the carnivorous island, I'd already taken the book and shoved it in the, this cannot be true, why is this terrible, why is Pi telling me this story of stupidness? But when the meerkats came up, there was no hope for the book to come back to the brinks of reality once the meerkats had shown up. Why? Because meerkats, they live in the desert. Well, maybe not the desert, but they live in the savannah. The meerkats in Life of Pi. They are not afraid of predators. They swim. They eat fish. They sleep in trees, and they live on a carnivorous algae island in the middle of the ocean. 5 points. They might not be in order, but here they are. 1. They sleep in trees. Meerkats dig underground and sleep in burrows. They do not sleep in trees. They are in the bottom of the earth, not on top of the earth. 2. Meerkats eating fish. Meerkats do not eat fish. Meerkats eat bugs. 3. Meerkats swimming in water. Meerkats do not swim in water. They can't. Maybe they can swim, but not well. They live in the desert. Do you think there's pools of water in the desert? No! 4. They live in the middle of the ocean. Did I mention the water from before? The water. There's no water in the desert. They don't know how to live in the water. 5. Meerkats have no predatory, escaping prey instinct thing. Now, it might be understandable if they lived there a long time, it's just been kind of weeded out of them. But meerkats are like the most nervous animal ever. They are constantly on the watch. They're the little guys that go and they look around. Those are the meerkats. They're always looking. Even after a lot of time, the meerkats would probably not lose their instinct to flee from predators, as that's the way they are. So, as I was reading the book and trying to think about the probability of Pi, I came across that he lands in Mexico, which is not that good. The boat passes him, the oil tanker, not probable. The man passes him, not probable. Orange juice passes him and gets on the boat, completely improbable. The zoo animals there, that all the marine life, the carnivorous algae is there. Did you see the hand flailing and the counting of fingers before? Those don't exist. The meerkats, the carnivorous algae, the whole island is fake. Of course, he could have been hallucinating, but you know. So, after analyzing and thinking of whether, even in Pi's universe, as I was interviewing Pi, could this story have really happened? Is it feasible? Do I believe it? I do not believe it. There's always the possibility, because of the way the book is written, that it's all a hallucination or something to make Pi get past what really happened, or maybe he didn't even crash at all. I mean, Martel makes you doubt the story so much that you really can't draw a conclusion. But if the story Pi tells through part 2 is the actual story, then the story is fake. Thank you for coming to Jesse's Book Corner. I hope you enjoyed my report, and I'll see you next time for more stuff, and bye, and give me an A, and stuff.
Hi!